birthday. You're beautiful. Oh, wow. Somebody just died over there. So our dumbest politicians are getting dumber. It's like a semi-truck full of dumb pills overturned, and Gavin Newsom leaped out of his limo and ate all of them up. And now he's ODing on dumb.
I watched this one guy, was it Jesse Waters or something on Fox News, what he's been saying about Paul Pelosi the last 5-6 months, mocking him consistently. Don't tell me that's not aiding and abetting all this. Of course it is. They're sowing the seeds of creating a culture and a climate like this. I mean, it's look online. Look at the sewage that is online.
Sure, Gavin, sure. He lived in a bus, but he definitely had cable. Gav talks like this maniac set his imaginary DVR on his imaginary TV on Fox News every night while wearing Brian Kilmeade pajamas, drinking his own urine out of a Fox Nation mug, and in his beautiful, dilapidated bus of a home. This is Rich from the party that calls everyone a Nazi or a white supremacist. Conservative black politician, white supremacist. Latino Republican, white supremacist. Jimmy Kimmel, funny. See, nothing makes sense. And the rest of the crowd who denies crime exists, they ain't much better. Take it away, fart blaster supreme.
The violent political rhetoric that is espoused by Republican leaders is inspiring violent political acts by individuals like this.
It is a uniquely right-wing problem right now. We cannot both sides this, given what we've seen in the last few years.
This is a sickness, but it's not divorced from the Republican Party.
The right has been playing this game for a really long time.
People in the Republican Party who have been fueling some of these conspiracies.
There's too much violence, political violence, too much hatred. Enough is enough is enough.
Well done, kids. You almost got us to forget that it's your policies, your defunding, your ambivalence that allows mayhem to rule. But back to Gavin blaming Jesse. It's so good. It's a battle of the narcissists. One is a good-looking tyrant who spends too much time on his hair, and the other's Gavin Newsom. He never watches. Gavin's rant, though, is wrong on 2 levels, which is one more level than his elevator goes to, if you know what I mean. One, only I can blame Jesse for stuff. Well, maybe me and his wife and his kids. But it's my wheelhouse, you blow-dried shapeshifter, so stay out of it. And second, why not blame the guilty party of the act instead of making it about words? Like Madonna's plastic surgery, it's nonsense on its face. You know, Son of Sam killed people because he listened to his dog. So let's ban dog ownership, since you never know what those mutts might be planning. Speaking of, here's my new little guy, huh? Yeah. His name's Gus. Yeah, he's adorable. And he tells me to do terrible things. Like be nice to Steve Doocy and steal money from Stuart Varney. So Jesse reported on Paul Pelosi, who happens to be Newsom's relative. He reported about Paul's DUI. Now, is Newsom implying that the press should not cover any law breaking by powerful people because then crazy people will come after them? Well, how convenient for powerful people then, especially Democrats. I guess you know what killed Kennedy? That Bay of Pigs coverage. That's a callback. So yes, please don't report on my stock trades, my maskless parties, or reckless driving, because that might radicalize one of 370 million people. But aren't they really worried about crazy people? Or, well, if they were, Keith Olbermann wouldn't roam free, that's for sure. They're actually worried about sane people realizing what's crazy. But let's pretend they're right for a moment, just to see what solution that might bring. Do we police language based on unstable reactions to such language? How is that possible? Do we appoint a board of crazy people to judge what upsets them? Sorry, you can't control the language of millions to placate a tiny minority of the unhinged. And I don't mean The View. There's nothing tiny about them. But they would rather police language than the actually dangerous nuts on the streets. What we need to do is defund the language police. To them, everything is a threat to democracy, except criminals. Free speech, threat to democracy. Voter ID, threat to democracy. Burning down a police station, priceless. But we know the suspect's responsible for his actions. It's not you or me. You and I didn't raise this a-hole or fry his brains with drugs or encourage him to overstay his visa. That's your clan, Mr. Newsom. The culprit was an illegal alien, mentally ill, homeless person. And what party has been delinquent in dealing with all three? Democrats. This asswipe should have been Canada's problem, like polar bears and Justin Bieber.
I love.
So sorry, Gav, it ain't us on the hook. It's you, the Democrats. You're the governor of a state full of countless victims. But it didn't matter because you weren't related to them. Nobody has done more to turn one of the most beautiful states in the country into a dangerous dystopia that people are fleeing from like rats on the Titanic than you, pretty boy. Why don't you try looking yourself in the mirror when you're combing your mop for the 25th time of the day and ask yourself, is maybe some of this my fault? So with days to go in an election, the Dems and the media are exploiting the Pelosi attack to distract from their failure in dealing with crime. Paul Pelosi isn't even the first person attacked by a crazy person with a blunt object in California that we've covered this year. Back in July, former Olympian volleyball player Kim Glass was hit by a metal pipe by a nut in L.A. And Jesse Waters hasn't criticized volleyball since they switched to snugger uniforms. California has a madman problem. And if you point it out, they'll tell you, no, it's you. It's not their ambivalence towards crime or mental illness. It's January 6th, Trumpers, MAGA country, Ronald Reagan, elephants, straight white men, whatever. What say you, Whoopi?
Fox
Well, you're in a
News,
position
some of
to
this is
help.
on your hands.
Yeah.
Some of this is on your hands. You know, you like to call people out. Well, I'm calling you all out. Stop with the that side is not good, because this is what it puts out there. It tells people that you think it's okay to do this. Stop doing it.
Well, that was easy for you to say. Sorry, Whoopi, if Nancy or Gavin had actually listened to our channel, maybe that nut would have already been institutionalized. Maybe there would have been more police, more security. That's all we talk about. That's our wheelhouse. But no, it's like they only watch CNN and MSNBC or The View, where you dispense bad advice like it's fentanyl. So now they can't even be honest about crime when one of their own gets hit with a hammer. But I guess when Democrats play whack-a-mole with any speech they don't like, everything looks like a nail. Let's welcome tonight's guest. Growing up on a cattle farm prepared him for all the manure in D.C. Author of the great new book, Only the Strong, Senator Tom Cotton. She'll make your heart go soft as she talks your ear off. Outnumbered co-host Emily Campagno. Crowds at his shows are lining up to pull the fire alarm. Writer and comedian Joe DeVito. And finally, she's hanging on by a thread, which is fun because she weighs like 90 pounds. Fox News contributor Kat Tipp. Senator, congratulations on the great new book. I've just started it. It's called Only the Strong. It's based on me, right?
Yes. I only bet you, Greg.
I would hope so. So when you hear this kind of rhetoric from other people blaming us, it's like the riots never happened. It's like the looting never happened. It's like burn it all down was never said. It's like somehow it's conservatives that are running around egging on like mobs of violence. They forget about Judge Kavanaugh. They forget about all of that stuff. What's going on?
Yeah, and remember, Gavin Newsom, before he was the failed governor of California, was the failed mayor of San Francisco. So he's responsible for a lot of these problems in San Francisco specifically. San Francisco styles itself as a sanctuary city where they welcome illegal aliens like this deranged lunatic that attacked Paul Pelosi. San Francisco had one of the very first Soros prosecutors before the people of San Francisco got so sick of him, they kicked him out.
Right.
But that's why you've seen a crime wave devastate this great American city. And then for Gavin Newsom to turn around and blame it on Republicans who point out that Nancy Pelosi has done things like pass Obamacare or cause inflation with $5 trillion that we don't have is the height of hypocrisy. By allowing mental lunatics out on the streets, by not cracking down on crime and throwing the books at them, by welcoming illegal aliens, you inevitably have this kind of crime in our streets. And it's not just Paul Pelosi. it's all of the normal Californians who aren't married to the speaker who suffer the most.
Exactly, exactly. You know, Emily, is this really just about hairline? Governor Newsom is looking at like Jesse's hair, and it's some weird, bizarre, subliminal competition.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's why he also sets his targets on Governor DeSantis too, right? It's like the guys that are competing with him in the looks department.
Yes.
So say some people.
Yes.
I used to live in San Francisco, Senator, under then Mayor Newsom's reign. And he talks about, you know, the sewage, he says, that is amplified online, that's being spewed out by these networks. I had to endure his sewage from the beginning. His policies are the sewage. They have led to the actual sewage on the streets of San Francisco, where my friends who still live there have to wade through on their way to get to work. It is choking the fish to the tune of billions of dollars that now taxpayers in that city are on the hook for. It is literally full of out of his mouth and his administration. So when people like Swalwell, too, who represents across the bay from Dublin, and also says, there's no colleague of mine that have advocated for violence. This show's not long enough for me to run through that litany. Everyone from Maxine Waters to Rep. Bowman. There's a civil war if the GOP wins. Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi talking about the Supreme Court. That rhetoric absolutely does matter. But I'll say that the responsibility, I say, lies at the top. Because before Justice Kavanaugh had a would-be assassin on his front lawn, there was nothing from the White House.
Yeah.
There was nothing from the elected official at the very top that said, I condemn this rhetoric of violence. No, everyone, tone it down. Let's actually be conciliatory. Let me be that unifier in chief I campaigned on being. So all of this simmering, of course it's going to be incendiary. Of course it's going to lead to someone on Kavanaugh's lawn that the mainstream media has forgotten, as well as this, this guy in his bus, whatever. But the bottom line is this administration did nothing to curb it from the beginning, so that all of this didn't lead to that exploded pimple. That is that guy.
You know, Joe, you also live in a bus, so you might have some insight. Insight into the psyche of this unbalanced man. Did you know him at all? People live in buses. Do they talk to each other?
You see a lot of right-wing radicals in buses with rainbow flags and BLM signs out in front of that. It's a calling card.
This guy's politics was all over the map. But I have to say, we have to be, it was a political attack. I mean, he's basically saying it's a political attack, but he's also insane.
Of course. Well, they were going to say that no matter. It could have been Elizabeth Warren hitting him in the head with a tomahawk, and they still would have said, although that's the only time they would have said she was white. But they would have blamed it on him. Look at the way it started. They said that they were going there for a routine wellness check, and they get there, and now it's two guys in their underwear fighting over a hammer, which in San Francisco is considered a routine wellness check, let's be honest. But yeah, it's absurd that they say this is a result of policies, like you mentioned, that the policies they're against would have prevented this from happening.
Amen.
He says the sewage as a metaphor when it's literal sewage in the streets. He says it creates an environment. Well, the environment you've created is these camps with drug addicts and untreated mentally ill people. We've got people coming from Canada who shouldn't be here. We've got to build that wall. We cannot have these Canadians coming down here. We can't do it.
People forget about the Canadian wall.
Yeah, you give them an inch and they'll take 1.6 kilometers.
You just say... That's very funny. You have to say, build that wall, eh? Hey. All right, Kat, what if you accepted the media's claim that it was about rhetoric? What is the solution then? That's the beauty of this. There is none. They don't have to solve it except say that it's your fault.
Yeah, he said Fox News, which I do take personally. But obviously, it's not Jesse Waters' fault that he did this. But Gavin Newsom basically said he was so famous that even this bus-dwelling lunatic knows not only who he is, but what he discusses on his show. That's a huge compliment in a way.
Yeah,
but there's household name, but then doesn't even have a household name. That's like fame, baby.
I totally disagree. There is no way that guy even knew who Jesse was.
I know, but Gavin Newsom thinks Jesse is that famous. I would say thank you, Gavin. You're right. I am a star.
Yes.
He's a bus-hold name.
Yeah.
He's a bus-hold name.
There's no way he knew who Jesse Waters is.
That is amazing. I always wanted to be a bus-hold name.
And not even one that moves.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's why, you know what? Who wants to live in a moving bus? That's no fun.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.